In quiet desperation, countless souls perform a life they never chose. They nod when they want to scream, smile through resentment, and sculpt themselves into shapes that fit others' expectations. They are the reliable colleague, the agreeable partner, the child who never disappoints. But beneath the applause, they are dying. Dying not from lack of achievement, but from never being authentically themselves. Meet the man in the weathered hat, calm eyes, grounded presence, a slight knowing smile. He looks like someone who has finally stopped running. But he wasn't always this way. There was a time when he was a ghost, constantly scanning faces for signs of disapproval, editing every word before it left his mouth, living as if his existence required permission from an invisible tribunal that never adjourned. Carl Jung called this the tyranny of the persona, the social mask that devours the face beneath it. Jung understood that people-pleasing isn't generosity, it's a wound dressed up as virtue. It's a survival strategy forged in childhood, where love came with conditions and acceptance required perfect performance. The man you see now discovered something radical. Freedom doesn't come from being loved by everyone. It comes from the revolutionary act of not caring whether you are. The roots of this affliction don't begin in adulthood. They burrow deep into the soil of childhood, where a small person learned the most dangerous lesson of all, that love is something you earn, not something you are. Picture a child at the dinner table, watching their parents' face like a weather vane. When they speak the right words, perform well at school, suppress their anger, hide their needs, the sun breaks through. Warmth, approval, safety. But when they express a genuine feeling, make a mistake, or reveal a desire that inconveniences others, the temperature drops. Coldness descends. The message is transmitted without words. You are acceptable only when you are useful. You are lovable only when you are compliant. Jung observed that children in these environments become what he called psychological radar stations, constantly scanning for signals of approval or threat. They develop an exquisite sensitivity to others' moods, learning to shapeshift before disapproval can fully form. It's not manipulation, it's survival. The child's nervous system learns that their authentic self is dangerous, that their genuine feelings are liabilities, that their worth is perpetually on trial. This creates what Jung termed a false self, a performance so convincing that eventually even the performer forgets it's a performance. The child becomes the perfect student, the agreeable friend, the one who never causes problems. They receive praise for this. They are told they are so mature, so responsible, so easy. And with each compliment, the real self, the one with messy emotions, inconvenient needs, and unpolished edges, is buried deeper. The tragedy is that this survival strategy works. It prevents rejection in childhood. The parent does smile more. The teacher does approve. Conflict is avoided. But the cost is catastrophic. The child learns to experience their own existence as conditional. They internalize the belief that who they really are is fundamentally unacceptable, and that safety requires constant performance. By the time they reach adulthood, this pattern has calcified into bone. They no longer remember making a choice to please others. It has become their entire orientation to reality. Every relationship becomes an audition. Every conversation becomes a test. Every moment of authenticity feels like standing at the edge of an abyss, where one wrong move will trigger the abandonment they've spent a lifetime trying to prevent. The man in the weathered hat remembers this prison intimately. He remembers the exhaustion of maintaining the performance, the growing sense that something essential had been traded away for safety. What he didn't yet know was that the bars of this prison were made not of iron, but of a belief, and beliefs, unlike iron, can be unmade. The disease of self-abandonment announces itself in ways both subtle and devastating. It doesn't arrive with dramatic collapse, but through 1,000 small deaths that accumulate in the body and psyche until one day you realize you've become a stranger to yourself. The first symptom is the inability to say no. Not just difficulty, actual inability. When someone asks for your time, your energy, your resources, You feel your mouth forming the word yes before your mind has even processed whether you want to give what's being asked. The request bypasses your will entirely, triggering an automatic compliance reflex. You cancel plans you were looking forward to. You work through weekends you desperately need to rest. You loan money you can't afford to lose. And afterward, you're left with a peculiar kind of resentment, not toward the person who asked, but toward yourself for being unable to refuse. Then comes the paralysis of choice. Simple decisions become existential crises. What restaurant to choose, which movie to watch, where to go on vacation, these ordinary questions freeze you in place. Not because you lack preferences, but because you've spent so long suppressing them that you've lost access to your own desires. You find yourself thinking, what would they want? What would make them happy? What choice would make me look good? Your internal compass has been so thoroughly calibrated to external approval that it no longer points to your own north. The exhaustion is perhaps the strangest symptom of all. You achieve the promotion, win the award, receive the praise, and feel nothing. Or worse, you feel a hollow dread. There's no celebration in your chest, no genuine satisfaction. Instead, there's only the immediate anxiety about the next performance, the next test, the next opportunity to fail in someone's eyes. Jung described this as the fatigue of the unlived life, the bone-deep weariness that comes not from doing too much, but from never doing anything that originates from your authentic self. You begin to notice a strange phenomenon. You can list everything you've accomplished, but you can't remember the last time you felt genuinely alive. You're surrounded by people, yet profoundly lonely. You're constantly busy, yet perpetually bored. Success feels like punishment. Praise feels like pressure. And somewhere in the background, a quiet voice whispers a terrifying question. If I'm not performing, if I'm not pleasing, if I'm not producing, who am I? The man in the hat knows these symptoms intimately. He lived them until they nearly consumed him. What saved him was not finding better ways to please others, but discovering that the person whose approval he most desperately needed was the one he'd been betraying all along, himself. When Jung spoke of not caring, he wasn't advocating for cruelty. He wasn't suggesting we become cold, narcissistic, or indifferent to human suffering. This is the crucial distinction that most people miss, and it's what separates psychological maturity from mere defense mechanisms. The common interpretation of not caring is a shutting down, a hardening of the heart, a withdrawal from connection. It's the person who's been hurt so many times they build walls and declare themselves above the opinions of others while secretly nursing their wounds. This is not freedom, it's just another prison, one where you're alone with your pain, pretending it doesn't exist. Jung's proposition was far more radical and far more difficult. He was describing a state of internal authority so solid that external judgments simply lose their power to destabilize you. Not because you don't hear them, not because you don't care about people, but because you've developed something more trustworthy than their approval, your own center. Think of it this way: a tree doesn't fight the wind. It bends, it sways, it acknowledges the force moving against it. But its roots remain unmoved. The wind cannot make the tree doubt whether it should be an oak or a pine. The wind cannot convince the tree to grow sideways to please the landscape. The tree remains what it is, responsive but not reactive, flexible but not fundamentally displaced. This is the difference between indifference to people and indifference to their judgments. You can deeply care about someone's well-being while remaining completely unmoved by their disapproval of your choices. You can listen to criticism without letting it colonize your sense of self. You can acknowledge that someone is upset with you without believing that their upset makes you wrong. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming a separate, whole individual rather than a fragment of collective expectations. It requires something most people never develop: the courage to disappoint. Not for the sake of being contrarian, not to prove independence, but because your internal truth has become more valuable than external peace. The person who has achieved this state can afford to be kind because their kindness isn't a strategy for approval. They can afford to be generous because their generosity isn't payment for acceptance. They can afford to be vulnerable because their worth isn't contingent on appearing strong. Paradoxically, it's only when you stop needing people's approval that you become capable of genuine connection with them. The man in the weathered hat embodies this. His calm isn't aloofness, it's groundedness. His slight smile isn't smugness, it's the quiet satisfaction of someone who has finally stopped asking the world for permission to exist. He cares deeply about many things. He simply no longer cares whether his existence makes everyone comfortable. And that distinction has made all the difference. The journey to psychological sovereignty doesn't begin with grand gestures. It begins with brutal honesty about where you've been abandoning yourself, often multiple times a day, in ways you've stopped noticing. Start by tracking the moments of betrayal. For 1 week, simply notice every time you say yes when you mean no. Every time you laugh at something that isn't funny to appease someone. Every time you edit your opinion mid-sentence because you sense potential disagreement. Don't try to change anything yet, just observe. Write it down. What you'll discover is staggering, the sheer volume of self-abandonment that has become your default mode of operating. Then comes the archaeological work Jung considered essential, reclaiming the exiled parts. These are the aspects of yourself you've buried because they threatened your acceptability. Your anger, your selfishness, your desires that inconvenience others, your boundaries, your no. Jung called this the shadow, not the evil within you, but the unlived life, the authentic self you've been taught is unacceptable. The work here is counterintuitive. You must deliberately practice being what you've spent a lifetime avoiding. Be selfish in small, strategic ways. Take the last piece of pizza without asking if anyone else wants it. Choose the movie you want to watch. Spend an evening doing exactly what pleases you without considering anyone else's preferences. These acts will feel monstrous at first. Your nervous system will scream that you're being cruel, that you're destroying relationships, that catastrophe is imminent. You're not. You're simply learning that you're allowed to take up space. Now comes the most difficult practice, strategic disappointment. You must deliberately disappoint someone. Not cruelly, not unnecessarily, but firmly. Say no to a request you would normally accept. Express a disagreement you would normally swallow. Set a boundary you would normally dissolve to keep the peace. And then, this is crucial, you must stay present for the discomfort that follows. Watch what happens. Often, nothing catastrophic occurs. The person adjusts. The relationship continues. The world doesn't end. Sometimes there's pushback, even anger. And here's where you build your internal authority. You must learn to sit with someone's disapproval without rushing to fix it, without apologizing for existing, without contorting yourself back into the shape they preferred. This is where the man in the hat was forged. Not in a single moment of revelation, but in 1,000 small acts of staying true to himself while others were disappointed. Each time he chose his truth over their comfort, each time he let someone be upset without making it his emergency, he laid down another root. Eventually, those roots grew deep enough that the winds of judgment could no longer topple him. There comes a moment in the transformation when you realize something extraordinary. You've been disliked, and you're still here. Not just surviving, but perhaps more alive than you've ever been. The catastrophe you spent a lifetime avoiding has occurred, and it wasn't a catastrophe at all. It was liberation. This is the birth of authentic presence. You stop performing because performance has become more exhausting than honesty. You stop shape-shifting because you've discovered something more valuable than universal approval, the profound relief of being yourself. The constant vigilance that once consumed your energy simply falls away, not through effort but through obsolescence. You no longer need it. What emerges is startling. Without the exhausting project of managing everyone's perception, you suddenly have energy for other things. Creativity, curiosity, genuine rest. You discover that you have opinions you never knew you held because you'd never given them space to form. You find that you actually enjoy solitude because there's finally someone interesting present, you. The emptiness that plagued you for years begins to fill, not with achievements or approval, but with the simple fact of your own existence. Relationships transform in ways you didn't anticipate. Some people fall away, and you realize they were only connected to your performance, not to you. This hurts, but it's a clean hurt, like removing a splinter. Others deepen in ways that surprise you. When you stop pretending, you give others permission to do the same. Intimacy becomes possible because there's finally something real to be intimate with. You stop attracting people who need you to be small, and start attracting people who appreciate your full dimensionality. The man in the weathered hat now sits comfortably in rooms where he once would have twisted himself into anxious shapes. His slight smile isn't practiced. It emerges naturally from someone who has made peace with his own existence. When criticism comes, and it does come, it lands differently. It's information, not verdict. He considers it, takes what's useful, releases what isn't, and remains fundamentally unmoved in his center. This is Jung's promise fulfilled, not a life without disapproval, but a life where disapproval no longer has the power to dismantle you. Not a life without caring, but a life where you care about the right things, your integrity over your image, your truth over your popularity, your authenticity over your acceptability. The paradox is complete. By learning not to care about everyone's opinion, you become capable of caring more deeply about everything that matters. By accepting that you will be disliked, you become genuinely likable, not because you're trying to be, but because there's finally someone real present to like. The performance ends. The life begins. And you discover what the man in the hat has known all along. Freedom was never about being loved by everyone. It was about finally being yourself. If this resonated with you, you're probably not here by accident. Subscribe. This channel is for people choosing clarity over chaos.